Hello guys and welcome to episode 6 of the SWR Darts Coaching Podcast. My name's Sean, I'm a JDC Level 1 qualified darts coach and I'm the owner of SWR Darts Coaching. In this episode today, hopefully the noise is okay. I'm actually in my unit where I do my darts coaching from. I've decided to do an episode based on Bridlington. Now, for those who are possibly unaware, the British Open, which used to be the BDO British Open, it's now the WDF British Open, is being held in Bridlington, which is on the weekend of September the 15th, 16th and 17th. It's over 3 days. It's held at the SWR Theatre in Bridlington, which is a lovely, lovely building. And in this episode, basically, I'm just going to talk about my love affair with Bridlington, I suppose. How many times I've been there. I've been there not just for the darts. I've played other sports there, pub sports. And basically, I want to just give some tips and feedback to anyone who's attending the British Open for the first time, I suppose. Because it can be daunting, this tournament can. It's not your standard sort of pub tournament. It can be a bit daunting, and I think this is why I just want to, put a few bits across from my own personal view. Everything that I sort of talk about in this podcast is going to be my personal view, my personal experiences at the British Open as well, and in Bridlington in general. So, much because it works for me, or this is how it went for me, doesn't mean it'll be brilliant for everyone. I have to apologise for my voice. My voice has slowly gone this week. I was at a football match on Tuesday and I probably shouted a little bit too much at the players than what I should have done. So, Bridlington, the British Open. What a place. Let's start with Bridlington itself. So, Bridlington's on the east coast of the UK, in Yorkshire. East Riding is the actual area it's known for. It's just down the coast from Scarborough, so a lot of people might know Scarborough. Scarborough's featured in a lot of TV programmes in the past, and it's for me it's I think it's 144 miles from my house, so it's about a 3-hour drive. But it's such a lovely, lovely town. Honestly, I've been going to Bridlington since probably the late 90s. And I went before that, to be fair. One of my earliest memories was when I was only maybe 11 or 12, perhaps. The reason I've got a love affair with Bridlington is I used to play, and I think I mentioned this in other podcasts episodes, I used to play dominoes, 5s and 3s dominoes. And we used to play in a tournament which was called the British National Dominoes Championships. And the British National Championships were where your pub team, you played dominoes for your pub, and you played against other pubs around the UK, and you would go through various regional tournaments, then national, and then you get to the finals, which were held in Bridlington at the SWR. And this was before the SWR had its renovation, which it is now. And I played when I was 18. When I finally turned 18, I could play in this event. And I used to go there with my mum and dad many times because they played dominoes quite competitively. And then I got into playing dominoes, 5s and 3s, which is it's a pub sport. It's a dead pub sport, unfortunately, in my area. I know there's still quite a few areas that have got this going, but in my area it's a dead pub sport. And what a game, the strategic side behind it was always great. And I loved it. I love dominoes. It's what got me, hooked as a kid. I didn't play darts for many years because of dominoes. To be fair, I always remember talking to my dad and telling him that I'd signed for a pub team on a Tuesday to play darts, and I'm going to have to drop dominoes. And I think he was like, "Really?" But yeah, we went there and we played many tournaments with the SPA. We also played at the Leisure Centre, which I think I might have this wrong, but I think one of the British Opens or the British Classics for darts was also held at the Leisure Centre. I might have that wrong, I'm not sure. But Bridlington, what a place. Your touristy seaside town in a way. Scarborough's a bigger place up the coast. A lot of people will probably know Scarborough, as I say. I think he featured in many TV programmes. But Bridlington has got some fantastic pubs, some fantastic history and culture. But the people of Bridlington make Bridlington. The people of Bridlington are absolutely the best in the UK, in my opinion. Friendly, welcoming. It's just a lovely, lovely place. And I think if you've not been to Bridlington before, I think this is something where you might look at this year and go, I'm looking forward to going up for the darts, but I'm not sure what the place is like. Where should I go? Where shouldn't I go? Well, in regards to where shouldn't you go everywhere. Honestly, just go everywhere you can. There's no bad pubs that I've ever really come across. In the actual sort of harbour area, you've got some brilliant pubs down there. You've got the George, which is always a favourite haunt of mine. I always pop in there when I'm in Brid. 2 dartboards in the pub. I think there's 3 actually, but I know there's 2 dartboards in the pub. You can also play dominoes in there. And that's what I was going to do. I was sort of going to just walk you around a few pubs, in my mind. So you've got the George. Across from there, you've got the Three Monkeys, I believe it's called. Now, I don't know if they do darts in there. But when I went in last year, it's a really good sort of Wetherspoons feel to the pub. But what a fantastic night. I think it was a Friday and a Saturday night. I went in there, really good. On the other side of that is Goat, G-O-A-T, sports bar. Great place. What a place. I spent loads of time in there last year. And little known secret, there's 3 dartboards upstairs in this sports bar. There are 3 dartboards upstairs. Concrete floor, so if you're a player who has a lot of bounce outs, concrete floor, so be careful, mindful of your points. Concrete floors will obviously, your points will be more likely to snap on them. But yeah, Goat. Moving up from there, you've then got the Harbour Lights. A nice little pub. Moving up from that, I think the Brunswick Hotel, I believe, has had a refurb, and I believe has got, this time round, a sports venue. So I believe the Brunswick has got sports in there. Now, please don't quote me if it's open. I'm recording this a week before the British Open. I've heard that's there. And that's around the harbour area. You've got the New Inn as well down there. That's another great pub. Good for karaoke. If you like a bit of karaoke, the New Inn's really good for a bit of karaoke. And then as you walk up from the New Inn up the main high street, you walk up towards the Wetherspoons. Very much a great place. Really good Wetherspoons, a good vibe. Also in this, around the Spoons, there are a few other pubs that I've never really gone into. I've been in them. There's not many pubs in Bridlington I haven't been in, to be fair. But there's quite a few. Now, what I do know this year is there's a lot of microbreweries popped up around Brid that I've been told about. So, it'd be nice to check out a few microbreweries. Sometimes in these microbreweries as well, you can get a dartboard in. But if we're talking about pubs with dartboards up that way, the Stirling Castle has got 2 dartboards, I believe. Last year I was in there on the Friday. There was a group of ladies who were playing the British Open. They were practicing in there. I went over and had a few games with them. Fantastic time, good chuck. We had a good laugh. So yeah, the Stirling Castle's another one that's got dartboards in. Obviously, as I say, GOAT Sports Bar. 3 Brass Monkeys, I'm not sure of. There's the Apollo. The Apollo, I don't know if they've got dartboards, but the Apollo is like another Wetherspoonsy type pub. So yeah, really good in there. Then obviously just down from that, you've got the George. Again, I know the George has got a dartboard. I've used it many, many times. The Hook and Parrot. I haven't been in the Hook and Parrot for quite a few years, so I couldn't honestly comment if they've got a dartboard. But that's a nice nighttime pub. If you were to ask me where would you go late at night in Brid, that's something I probably couldn't tell you, to be fair. I'm going to go back many years. We used to go to a nightclub called Liberties. And Liberties was on the main drag in Brid, just near the arcades on the promenade. And I've got a great story from there, and I know this is a darts coaching podcast, but I'm going to have to tell this story. So I was in Liberty's nightclub one night. It's when I went for the Dominoes. I think it was the Dominoes I went for this one. And there was 2 Irish gentlemen in there. This is a true story. And this Irish chap turned to the guy and he went, I can pull any woman in this club tonight. And his mate said, you're joking. He says, no, I'm telling you now. And he looked at me. He went, young man, come here. He says, I'm telling my friend here I can pull any woman in this club tonight. What do you think? I went, I don't know you, mate. But yeah, okay. He says, no. He says, he turns to his mate. He says, put £10 down and I will tell you now you can pick the woman. He went, actually, this young man pointed at me. He can pick the woman and I will go and pull her tonight. So he put his £10 down. I looked across the room and I spotted a girl near the bar. And I went, all right, mate, that lady there. And he went over and he grabbed her arm and he just pulled her towards him. She turned around, startled. He went, there you go. I've pulled her from that spot to that spot. I've pulled her. I've won the bet. And he turned around to this woman. He goes, there you go. There's £10. Get yourself some drinks. And I was absolutely in stitches. And I actually saw them. It was the Dominoes, actually, because I remember I saw them at the Dominoes the next day. And they were a little bit worse for wear as I was. But yeah, that's the type of crack you get in Bridlington. It's really good. So, the British Open. I've been going to the British Open since I started at darts, so around the 2008 time. I think it was my first ever real major tournament. It was the BDO that used to run it back in the day. And the first year I went was probably my best year, I think. I remember I got through to the very latest, I think it was the last 64. And it's, back then, the setups are pretty much the same as they are now, with the fact that this year with the WDF, I would imagine it's the same as what we had last year, where we had the electronic scoreboards via Dart Connect. But back in the day, you used a bit of charcoal, is what I'll describe it as. It was all like a pencil on yellow sheets, and you wrote it down. The yellow sheets have got the 4 lanes, if you will. So the score, what's left. And it's the usual thing with any tournament that you go to, any big tournament as well. You mark, the moment you finish your darts, go and mark. Make sure you mark your game. If you can't mark, go to control, tell control that you can't mark. Find someone, buy them a pint. If someone's going to mark for you, have the decency to buy them a drink. It's the best thing you can do. It keeps games flowing. And I'm going to come to that in a few minutes about the games flowing, because I've been to this event as well where games haven't flowed as quickly as you would like them, and you can be, you're there. These are long days, by the way. These are very, very long days. So that was, like I said, my first experience there. I went to, I think, a year later, and that was the year that I went on my own. I was meant to go with a couple of friends, but I went on my own. And as I got there, I played my opening game. I remember the guy was from Sheffield, and I won. And then the next game, I was straight on. I can't remember how it worked out, but I was straight on, which you're not normally in these events. And I went on and I lost. And, I lost very, very poorly. And I remember I stood there and I was marking the game, ready to mark the game. I didn't leave the board. I stood there and marked. And next thing you know, these 3 darts started hitting the board. They called out the players to the board. I didn't get the names. And as the 2 players come and they were throwing, I didn't really know much about the players in the BDO or the young players that were in the game at the time. And I remember turning around and going, right, what are your initials? And one gentleman turned around and went, PS. So I wrote PS down at the top. And the other chap went, MVG. The other guy I was marking for was a very, very young Michael Van Gerwen. And wow, was the thing I'd say. It was unbelievable marking. I never marked a game like it. It was over in a flash. And the last leg, he went 180, 180. And then I can't remember what he hit. But he ended up doing it in 11 darts. And he won the leg and he come over to shoot my hand. And I asked him to sign the piece of paper that I'd marked on. And I'll always remember it. He turned around to me and went, no, you don't have to hand them in. And I was like, no, I said, I've never marked a game of darts that, been in like an 11 leg where it was, 180, 180. I said, I'd just like you to sign it. And I remember he signed it, MVG and what have you. And I've got it somewhere, and I really don't know where it is. But that was an experience and a half. Michael van Gerwen was a very young player at that time. And it was fantastic to mark that game for him. And one of the other memories I've got with the darts as well, because obviously back in the day it used to be that the draw for the British Open would be published the night before. So Darts for Windows, I think it might have been at the time, I might have that wrong. They used to put the draw out on the Saturday night for the Sunday event. And I remember I was in a restaurant at a pub with my wife, and my friend called me and he rung me up. He's like, John, you've been seeded. I said, I beg your pardon. He says, you've been seeded for tomorrow. You're number 24 in the draw, you've been seeded. I said, no, you idiot. I said, I was the 24th person to sign up. I said, the number next to your name is when you signed up. I said, don't mean you're seeded. I said, I haven't played in the BDO event all year. I said, and certainly not going to be in the top 32, am I? He was like, oh, sorry about that. I said, never mind. I said, who have I got anyway? He goes, you've got a player called Willy van der Wiel. And I thought, I recognise that name. And I remember I went on the website and looked. And at that time, Willy van der Wiel was the world number 10 in the BDO. So I've travelled all the way up to Bridlington and I've drawn the world number 10 in my first game. And the next day I arrived and I went through my little practice routine. And I remember I was on the practice ball with Anastasia Dobromyslova. And I think a fella, Tony Martin, I believe it was, he was on the board as well. And it was great. And I remember I was sitting with Dave Chisnell. Chizzy was just coming through in the BDO at the time. I was sitting with one of his sponsors, who was a good friend of mine at the time. And obviously, we got the call out to go to the board. We were next on. And we went to the board, and the gentleman who was playing before us, he got dartitis. So he struggled. And he didn't stay to the mark. And someone marked for him. But I remember playing Willy van der Wiel, and my dad was sitting above us in the balcony area. And I was like, right, let's take a leg off the world number 10. And I kicked him with a 140. Lovely, great darts. Forget what he kicked him with. I then kicked him with a 137. Oh, yes, I'm on it here. I'm here, I'm there. And I didn't hit a single score over 60 after that. And I lost, I think it was 4-0. I lost 4-0. But, afterwards I spoke to Willy and he offered some advice and it was great. And I can't remember his friend at the time he was there with, who he played doubles with. I think he was something like Joey Tenberg. And I had a bit of a practice with both of them, to be fair. I had a good practice with both of them. But yeah, it was, again, it's an experience. So that's just a brief thing of my experiences at Bridlington and, a few of the pubs that obviously I'll be frequenting next week. If you do see me, I will have my shirt, SWR Darts Coaching, on my shirt. I've got, I've got my sponsors, well, they're not sponsors, my supporters, should I say, sorry, Premier Darts and Go Darts Pro. But so if you see me, come over, say hello, come and have a chat with me. If you see me in a pub, come over, have a practice with me. That's what it's all about for me. So my do's and don'ts, I suppose, at these events. Make sure you've got the Dart Connect app on your phone, or at least a link to it for the website. So everyone who registers for the British Open has to register through Dart Connect. The system they use is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. It tells you what board you're on, so it'll come up and say you're on board 13, board 14, whatever it would be. It'll tell you when you're on, so it'll show you how many games there are before your game. You'll get a notification when the game before you is on. And then obviously you get your notification when you're due to be on. So make sure you get down to your board plenty of time. When you arrive at your board, you go over and if you will register that you're there. So the app will show you the 2 players. You click that you've arrived. Once that's done, the marker then has to say that they are there. So whoever's lost the previous game will mark the next game. So again, please, as I keep saying, if you're not going to mark, go and tell control, tell them so they can rearrange it. Let's get games going as quickly as we can. But make sure you've got, the Dart Connect app, or at least the link to it on your phone as a web page, because it's brilliant. Another couple of tips: get there early to register. Not because the queues are massive, but just because you're done. Once you've gone in and you've registered, and they've registered you, they've confirmed you are who you are, and you're registered. That's it. Then you can then go off and do what you might need to do. So a lot of people will go to the pub that's across the road from the Spa, which is called the South Cliff. That's very popular for dart players on these British Open and Classic weekends. So, if you want to go across there with a chuck, you'll be in for a wait. You will be in for a wait. If you want to go up into the town and grab some breakfast, there's some fantastic cafes up there as well. There is a cafe opposite the Spa as well. I know a lot of people will go down to the Spa, register, then walk back up to Wetherspoons. You can walk to Wetherspoons from the Spa. It's about maybe a 10-minute walk, 15 for me because I'm carrying a little bit of overweight. But like I say, make sure you've got that app and make sure you're there. Make sure you register, as I say, register as early as you can. I believe registration this year is 9 till 10 for the British Open. Please don't quote me on that, but that's what I understand. But get down there, walk in. You normally go through the main doors. They send you off to another room. That's where you register. Then you'll give you a wristband, I think. Always put your wristband on your non-throwing hand. That should be a given, but I know it's not for a lot. Put it on your non-throwing hand, just so it's not affecting your throwing hand. That wristband then obviously just gets you access down into the floor and obviously into the seating area at the top. If you're a player who likes a drink early, the bar opens early in the Spa. Obviously, Wetherspoons is open early. Last year, I believe the Three Monkeys was open early. Goat opened at 10, I believe. But there are plenty of places you can go get a drink. If you want an alcoholic drink, if you want a tea or a coffee, again, plenty of cafes knocking about. These days can be long, as I said. They can be long. Last year, we were meant to start, I think it was at 10:30. By 11:15, we hadn't even got the notifications of the draw. I've been told 2 different reasons for this, and I will say what I've been told. Reason 1 was that they were waiting for players who were seeded players to arrive and register. So they were still waiting for them. For me, I'm sorry, but if you've not registered by the time is, that's it. But that's just me. That's how I'd run a tournament. That's one reason I was told. The other reason I was told was that the system didn't work. So the Dart Connect didn't, send out the draw when it should have done. But it's going to, just because it says 10 o'clock end, you might not get your draw till 11. Practice well and practice with purpose. You know my motto: purpose to your practice is pressure in your practice. Practice with purpose when you're down there. Move around the boards. Don't stay on one board. Move around different boards. There's probably about 40 boards available in the room. Have maybe 9 darts on each board, or 9 darts on different boards. I think last year, if my memory serves me, I picked odd numbers, or I went on all the odd number boards. Don't worry about joining a queue if 2 people look like they know each other and are practicing and warming up, beforehand. Just go and join that snake. It's what the purpose of it's there for. But practice with purpose. So throw your first 3 darts at a 20. Throw your next 3 darts to make a bow tie. Throw your last 3 darts at a checkout. Move to another board. Throw 3 darts at 19. Go for another bow tie. Go for a different checkout. Do things like that. So you're doing something different, but you're using that board management like I've talked about on previous podcasts. That's very much key for me. Making sure that you're utilising as much of the game as you can. The one I do, and it's not for everyone, this isn't, take a book. Take a book with you. So in between your games, instead of you standing at the bar, you might be someone who wants to drink, that's fine. But if you're one of them players who are, I get nervous between games, take something to do. So I take a book, I read a book. I'm not a big book reader, but I take a book on I read a few chapters just in between. Take your headphones and listen to a podcast, because if you've got the app on your phone, it'll notify you when you're on, so you don't listen like back in the day where you'd always be like, has he just said my name? Have they just said my name? I don't know if they said my name. So yeah, take a book, or buy a magazine. Do something in between to just let your brain relax as well in between in between matches. Again, if you lose in the first round or the prelim round, yes, it's the end of the world. We've all travelled up here. It's disappointing. But as I keep saying, please mark your game, and then help others. Go around and talk to folk. Darts community is a wonderful community, and the community of Bridlington is a wonderful place. Go round and speak to other people. Be around. Make sure you're around the venue for when you need to be around the venue. If you take a bag with you or a coat with you, etc., a coat, it's liable to be 30 odd degrees if it's anything like today. You can go upstairs. There's a lot of seating upstairs. There's not a lot of seating downstairs. There's a lot of seating upstairs. So there's places you can leave your coat, but you're leaving them at your own risk, shall you say. When you go down to the floor and play your game, there are tables where you can put your drink, or you can put your coat in your bag. So that's a great place to do it. Last year, I remember, I won't mention the person's name, but I walked in the venue and I put my coat over a seat. I went round my jumper over a seat. I went round the venue to have a throw and get warmed up. And I came back and there was a woman sitting in my seat that I just, where I put my coat. So I just said to her, excuse me, can I have my jumper? She went, oh, is this yours? I went, yes. She went, oh, right, sorry, I've sat on it. And give it me back. Not, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in your seat. She went, oh, I'm sorry, I've sat on it. And give it me back. Very, very rude. But because of the woman it was, I wasn't surprised. And like I said, I'm not going to mention who it was. But, if you put your jumper on a seat, don't presume that that's going to be where you're going to sit for the rest of the day. People have a habit of just, going to where they go in their groups. If you see players who you've seen on TV, either the modus or everything, and they're with other people, trust me, they all want to talk to you. They'll be willing to talk to you. Last year, I spoke to quite a lot of players. Just went over and just asked them questions, and I'll be doing the same again this year. So don't be fearful about asking players for advice, help, and all that. That's what they're there for. They will help you. So hopefully I don't want this one to be a complete and utter ramble. This is just my Bridlington podcast. I hope I see as many of you there as I can. I don't think I'll be at the Conservative Club on the Friday night event, but I may go to one of the Vault Tours on the Sunday. I need to figure out how that works, so I think I might go to a Vault Tour on the Sunday. But honestly, guys, if you're going to Bridlington, you see me, come over, say hello, but just enjoy it. Enjoy the whole weekend. Take in as much of Bridlington as you can. Bridlington Town are playing on the Saturday afternoon against Belper if anyone wants to go watch the football. It's a fantastic little club. Go and support non-league football if you've got nothing on the Saturday, if you're not playing the British Classic. But my last thing, if you're in a pub and you're playing on the dartboard and you and your mate are having a game and someone comes along and says, oh, can I mark a game and play a game with you? Do the right etiquette and let them play as well. They're there for the same reason you are. They're there to have a game of darts and have a practice. Be nice. Please be nice about it. I've been there where I've gone to throw in a pub, on the Saturday, and I've asked a guy if I can mark the game, and they went, no, it's just me and my mate playing, and I hate that. So if you're in a pub and you and your mate are playing, and someone comes along and says, oh, do you mind if I mark a game and then I can play a game? Do the right thing. Be etiquette-wise and let them play. Okay. That's my ramble over. Thank you very much for listening. Be sure to follow me here on Spotify. And if you head over to all the other socials, Facebook, Twitter /X, TikTok, everywhere else. Just search SWR Darts Coaching and you'll find me. Folks, if you're going to Bridlington, enjoy. Thank you very much for listening and enjoy your darts.